I've got the easy job this afternoon. I'm the moderator for this discussion. The four gentlemen behind me have the harder job of explaining technology and where we are. This was kind of an idea that was born from the 5 people you see here. How many of the people went to TechCon in the fall? Anybody in here go to TechCon? All right, so the ball started getting rolling. Jay Karen had this idea and said, hey, I think that there's enough interest in the industry that we should talk about technology, and not just as a kind of a sideshow here, but let's talk about technology as something that's going to be more front and center for our industry as we go forward. From that, then Matt reached out to me and said, hey, Jim, we're starting podcasts. And he said, would you do the first podcast for us? And I was like, heck, I've heard of this thing called podcast, but I had never done one before. And so we did that. And then we're also Facebook live streaming today. So another thing is you think about technology and how it's being used in the golf industry. It's a way that on Chronogolf's Facebook page, this is actually going out to their users. So think about ways that you could put things on Facebook for the millennials, etc. So one of the things when I thought about how I would moderate this panel, and I talked to each of the 4 people behind me when we were on the calls, and I said, we need to get to best applied technology. Let's not talk about, imagine in your mind a driverless car where the guy's playing golf virtually in the car with somebody 3 continents away. Let's get to best applied technology. So we struck a compromise, and they said, we want to talk about, we'll do best applied technology, and then I also want to do one kind of best future technology. So you're going to see a little bit of both here. And the format that we're going to use today is going to be, each of them is going to do 10 minutes of prepared remarks, so what they want to talk about, and then I'm going to come back and moderate Q&A. So think about questions. There's nothing worse as the moderator is saying, I'll now take questions, and you all look at me with a blank stare. So I've thought up a couple questions in case you leave me hanging out there, okay? So think about questions. We'll come back. And so we're going to wrap it at about 4:45. I'm going to apologize in advance. I have got to dash. So at 4:45, if Jim disappears and there's this great spirited discussion going on, just keep going. It's not due to lack of interest. I unfortunately have to get back for a funeral tomorrow. So 6:50 is my wheels up. I got to be out of here. Any questions on what we're going to do? All right, so without further ado, let me introduce the panelists here. On the far left here, you got Matt Welliver. Matt is a literal giant in the industry when it comes to technology. If you see when he stands up, you'll see he's like 3 heads above me. I met Matt first at Gensys. He was there, and we were talking about how to integrate information. He's been through a couple of different companies and things, but Matt's always a spirited discussion. I love talking to him. We have some great, lively debate. Scott Merchant next to him, he and I met when he was with 4 Reservations. They were one of the first people to make a customer to transaction tie. So Stuart and Scott and I were the people behind, how do you collect, yep, it's you, Bruce. How do you collect information about golfers and then make it pass seamlessly so that we understand their behavior, not just that they were on the tee sheet. Jason Wilson of Gallus Golf sitting next to him. Jason actually approached Stuart in the very beginning and said, hey, we want to do some social media apps and mobile apps for the golf industry. And back when he first approached us, it was like, you want to do what? And so the first PGA show he came to and started talking about mobile and social, I'm sure he felt like he had crashed the wrong party here. But he was just telling me, he said, I've been to the bathroom and in my booth. So I would guess that interest in social mobile is a lot higher than it was when we first started having that conversation. And finally, on the far left is Stuart Lindsay, a man who almost needs no introduction. Stuart and I have been working together for quite a while. He's been doing technology consulting since, 91 probably, maybe even before 90. I won't date you quite that much.
Doesn't matter, I'm old.
He's old, okay. And so Stuart's going to talk a little bit about information and analysis and how we use technology to do that. All right? So with that, we're going to go ahead and start off. And who has the kickoff here? Scott?
I think that's me.
All right. So see if that's picking up. I'm going to try and see if I can guess what mine.
I thought you said you weren't the sound guy.
I'm not, but I am now.
All right, so thanks for putting this all together. I know Matt and Jim were, I think seeing a gap that was out there on the programming side, and so I'll go first. I'm happy to be here, but if you don't know me, I see a lot of familiar faces in the room. I'm first and foremost a passionate golfer. That's what got me into this space at the get-go. And my career path has put me into the technology in golf role back way back when Windows was a cool thing. I started at the facility level as a caddy, very low tech, cleaning clubs with a toothbrush, so I can't get any more low tech than that. And then going through to the college golf shop in the individual facility, working my way with Kemper, and then I left to help scale up a company called 4 Reservations, which was acquired by Golf Now. And that led me into seeing an opportunity in the marketplace to create a company called Golf Pipeline regarding third-party distribution, helping golf course owners more smartly navigate the internet. And eventually that turned into Golf Book, now powered by CBS Sports Digital. So as you look at my 20, 25 years here in the golf space, I'm swimming up the funnel of golf as I looked at this. And so the slide here is kind of a standard funnel for a golf course and for any business. And you might be asking yourselves, what's a funnel? So the way I look at a funnel is how your customers are finding you. That's the top of the funnel. So where are they finding you? How many of them are there? How many of those are golfers? How many of those are golfers at your specific facility? And as they wind their way down through the funnel, they come to visit your golf course, they come play golf, they repeat that process, and out at the bottom of the funnel is supposed to come cash. Right? That's supposed to be the end result. Although after seeing the state of the industry this morning, I don't know how the bottom of the funnel is going to do that. So the way I'm going to look at this is kind of giving you kind of some of the macro statistics that we look at on the golf book side of things, and then apply those back to the facility like Jim said. So the way that tee times are being booked today in 2017, 2018 in golf, the numbers look like this. Just short of 65% of those are still transacted over the phone. Your direct internet channel, your direct website for the entire industry is just shy of 18%. Outings and leagues account throughout the industry roughly about 10% of those. So those are tee times that you're booking in January for that June, July, August activity. Third-party channels make up 5% of the golf industry's bookings, and walk-ins account for roughly 2%. So the last run we did through the golf industry on a secret shopper of 1,000 golf courses yielded 95% failure rate across the industry to capture an email address at the time of booking. And an even higher percentage will fail to collect that in person. So that is, 1,000, 1,100 actual samples. So, for Stuart and Harvey in the room, I think we're pretty close on the margin of error. With all of that, we're seeming to get agreement here in the industry. If the NGCOA and Andrew Wood and Pellucid can agree on this one thing, then it must be true, that he with the largest database will win. That's a fact. Yet, we're not giving the part of the funnel the most attention. So we are not collecting data. We are not collecting the basic data. We're not collecting the sophisticated data. And we're a long ways off from the futuristic golf cart driving itself. They know that you need beer and that you like Miller Lite that's on the cooler waiting for you when you arrive. But the part of the funnel, oddly, that's getting the most attention is the 5%. The third-party channels seem to be getting a lot of the oxygen and airtime over the last 24, 36 months in the space, even though it makes up a fraction of what the industry is actually doing. So how do we take that micro statistic back to the facility level? I look at it as funnel focus, which is what are the tactics that are actually going to drive results to the facility. If you're going to believe what I'm saying and what the NGCOA and Andrew Wood and Pellucid is saying, which is you have to build your database however you do it, you have to be very focused on that part of the funnel. So the way to do that is the direct tactics, and the tactics you control have to output data. So if 65% of the reservations are being made on the phone, then I think we should focus maybe 65% of the effort actually there, as sad as that sounds. So going backwards in the world, we need to have tactics and scripts and consequences that lead to a successful outcome on the phone. So that to me starts with good hiring, starts with good outsourcing, and that will lead to data collection. The previous excuse or reasoning behind not collecting data would be, I've cut my golf shop staff, we're not doing as well, and then therefore we're not, having the time to collect the data. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The second channel that's producing the most results for the industry is your direct website, your direct online channel. So these are things that Chrono Golf helps with. These are things that Gallus and Pelusa will help with. So one-to-one marketing in the back for sure. This is website, and now it's not just a website. It includes mobile web, it includes mobile app, it includes the user flow of how somebody hits your website, what they see, where they go to next. And an online business like Golfbook, that's kind of all we're thinking about, but in the golf industry, we're not giving any attention to that. So it's important to choose partners and technology vendors that understand that, and they're helping to increase your conversions, increase the user transactions. The end of that preparation of the direct online channel, again, should be data collection. So online tee times, forums, lead gen, wedding leads, anything that touches your business, all of that should have data collection as the output of that funnel. The goal for your facility, for the industry overall, should take the 65% and try to get that down and get the 18% and get that up. So one of your marketing tactics, if not the number one marketing tactic you should be thinking about, is how do I convert my phone channel to my direct online channel? How do I get a phone call to convert to the web? Given golf's challenges of older white males that may or may not be technologically savvy, we've seen that adoption rate actually go almost into the 90 percentile for golfers having a smartphone. That to me is kind of the barrier. If you have an iPhone, if you're using Google Maps, you should be somewhat web savvy enough to book a flight, to book a hotel or a rental car online, which would lead me to believe you can get them to book a tee time online. So we need to strategically and methodically move those golfers online. And that actually starts at the facility level. The incentives that you're offering, the speed of the website, the apps that you might have, all of that needs to convert the phone channel to the direct channel. The easiest way I've seen it in my 20 years was a golf course in New Jersey. Just raised their price by $5 over the phone. So they went from 18% to about 60% online bookings by just sticking to their guns and saying we're going to convert the phone channel to the website channel and charge $5 more for golfers booking over the phone. And then taking that, data collection to the next level, which is how do we collect golfers 2, 3, and 4? And this is one of the only things that I think about is we get the booking golfer in, we slide their credit card, high-speed credit card processing, they're out the door in 3 seconds. The second, third, and fourth golfer, by and large, we don't care. Just you get them in, you slide their credit card, and out they go. They could be in front of your staff and out the door in under 10 seconds if they have their credit card ready. And so at that point, we missed 75% of the data capture opportunity of the facility. So the strategies and things that are in place, this isn't anything new. I would imagine the converted here have already heard some of this stuff. Is the tactics that we would use is you ask the golfer for that information. Do you need to give them something to do it? Maybe. Do you force them to do it? Maybe. We've seen kiosks, we've seen golf courses turn their computer screen around or put a keyboard up there to have the golfer enter in. We've seen incentives. I've seen pictures on the first tee. I believe Club Profit has something like that where the starter takes the picture, give me your email address and I'll send you guys the picture. I've seen F&B incentives, golf shop incentives, awards incentives, etc. But it's a cultural shift that the golf course would have to make. And it starts with hiring, starts with training, starts with scripts, and migrates its way down to just collecting and analyzing that data. Hey, we collected 120 emails today. We're at 65% registration. So those are the specific tactics that I would offer up for somebody saying, all right, I need to grow my database. What are the steps that I would do in order to do that? The second kind of macro statistic that I look at, especially for the golf industry, as we apply to the sales funnel, is the marketing spend. So when you look at the sales funnel, the quote I found that compelled me here is how marketing funds are allocated is driven by what kind of business you're in, what your competitors are doing, and how your customers behave through that buying funnel. If you only have 85-year-old men at your facility, then converting phone traffic to a direct online traffic might not work. So you actually have to spend marketing funds where your customers are and where your next customers are. In my research, a normal business, and unfortunately this is bad news for golf, the normal business will spend an average of 6 to 10% of their top line revenue on marketing. Golf, not so much. I asked Jim what he thought the percentage was, and I believe you were saying aggressively you try to get people to 2%. And the numbers that I've got here is a normal B2C business to consumer service, which golf falls into, is averaging 9.3%. So if you take your top line revenue, put 9.3%, that's what we should be spending on marketing. And I don't think I've seen it. Hopefully, you guys are above 2. But I think we can go back now and look at the decisions that we've made to cut marketing and reevaluate whether that was the right idea or not. A normal business outside of golf, they take that 6 to 10% of top line revenue, and digital marketing accounts for 41% of their total marketing spend, going to 45% by 2020. So heading up, and that gets everything into that digital world. So what I'm talking about is search engine marketing, website, social, digital marketing, online video, and other miscellaneous digital email. So I've seen throughout the industry, with Gallus and with others, we are migrating into those sort of services, finally coming to golf. One of the best I've seen is the guys at One-to-One Marketing open up a digital agency inside of themselves so that they can help the normal golf course that may not be a search engine marketing expert get to where they need to be, or at least at base level, buying their own keywords, buying targeted words, learning how the Google system works. But if you want to use those as a benchmark, not saying that this is what everybody has to do and go and spend this much money, but as a benchmark, what other B2C service industries are doing is spending that much money through those avenues. So if you look at that marketing plan, if you look at that marketing budget, and it includes the words Yellow Pages or newspaper ads, go ahead and flush that marketing plan down the toilet, start anew, use that as kind of the base start for where we're going. So how do we look at this from a golf facility and how they spend it? So I know and have said for years that marketing is the golf industry's Achilles heel. And I would be referring to people outside of this room. As I look at the attendee list, this is pretty much the choir or the converted. So you guys might already be doing some of these things, so it's not necessarily your problem, but it's our problem as an industry to figure out how do we get the other 99.9% up. So this is one of the Achilles heels of the golf industry. When you look back to where golf was, combine it with what you learned at the state of the industry, which was back in the day, kind of the mid-'80s, early '90s, we had this open the doors, build it and they will come. The friends at NGF were telling everybody to build a course, and it was working. It was really doing great. You would do limited traditional media, you would do print media, you would do radio and TV. Those costs are going up, and the ability to determine what the return on that investment is going down. You don't know what a return on the investment is from a newspaper ad or a radio ad unless you're putting a specific coupon or a promo code attached to it. We migrated as a golf industry into traditional database marketing, which was mail and phone, right? So we'd send out our contracts through the mail, do some sort of telemarketing. And we introduced ourselves to email marketing at a base level, just sending out email blasts, and then moving into kind of data segmentation. 2000, we started getting into a direct channel website. Mobile web started to come on when we started to do online tee times as the computer migrated into your pocket. And now we're into sort of a mix there with social and search and your web kind of ideally working in harmony. And again, a proper marketing mix will have all of those factors taken in. So that was the path that golf is on, and as I looked at this and was preparing my slides, knee-jerk reactions have become generational trends in the golf industry. What we did as just a quick stopgap measure has become a legacy tactic that we employ 10, 20, 30 years down the road, and that is painful. So traditional media of newspapers and PR and letting people in your area know who you are has turned into just a coupon bin on the local newspaper. Database marketing has turned into non-segmented, easy email blast, take $20 off your green fee, send out. A website has become not necessarily optimized across multiple channels. The online tee times world has gotten a little bit more complex. Social marketing is pretty much non-existent as it applies to golf, and certainly search and online marketing is almost non-existent. I asked Ryan Wood what percentage of the golf industry uses search engine marketing. He said the number was close to 0. Right? So if there's 50 or 100 people, maybe 1,000 people if you include the management companies that might do that, golf is way behind as its use of traditional and social media. The golf industry overlays any marketing channel usually with discounts. It doesn't have any usual innovation to go to, it doesn't have a brand proposition, so it takes all of those things that would be normal consumer outreach and it just applies it to discounts. And so what that has led is just kind of worse and worse results for the golf industry. So what would be a snap decision, I'm just going to discount a little bit, I'm just going to use this channel, I'm just going to do last minute golfer, has turned into a generational death spiral essentially for price control. And we need to actually go back, take control of the marketing, and turn some of those snap decisions back into a little bit more smarter practices. And I just listed some examples, and you guys might have 20 others, but we made a decision to ban anchor putting, and it still stands, even though the entire industry pretty much hates that thing. Right? So for extra credit, as I move through my minutes here, is since I'm the third-party guy, the third-party practices and tactics, ideally, and I think the NGCA is getting here, certainly what I want the industry to go to is just to create some sort of win-win with third parties. What that means to me is price parity, controlling your price across channels. It applies to search engine marketing tactics, and it applies to the things that are happening on the local and national level. That starts again with contracts, what's in your contract, how to get out of them, exclusivity, some of those pitfalls that you guys should be aware of, and the NGCA is doing a good job on the best practices to get that in front of you. Jay Karen just recently wrote a blog on the Wall Street Journal on what Google is doing in the travel industry. Golf comparatively is very small, so we're actually lucky that Google's not that interested in this space right now. But having your business running with Google in mind, knowing that a lot of the online consumers, probably a super majority of your online consumers, might actually start their search at Google, you need to be aware of that and treat your marketing plan accordingly. On an online brand, I think we can pretty much nod the head that everybody in the room would say you need to protect that brand. You need to trademark your name, you need to buy your own keywords or get people off of your keywords. And then all of that, again, goes back to the database. Should the third party be helping you build that data, you might want to plant the data and learn how that data is being used. This, in the third party world, does not excuse yourself from actual doing marketing work. It shouldn't replace or even reduce your marketing efforts. It's actually just a complement to what you're already doing. That's the way it should work. So with all of the fervor that sometimes comes along with the third-party space, my line has been the same here, which is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The national third-party distribution avenues can lead to greater exposure. It's a fact. They have larger marketing budgets than a golf course does, especially if we're going to be hovering around 1 or 2%. So that exposure could be used for good. The consumer has a desire for aggregation. So the industry, there was a couple of words in there about disintermediating the consumer from the direct business. That's true. That's one of the things that third parties do. However, the consumer actually wants some of that disintermediation. They want to be able to see the 5 golf courses in the area, or the 100 golf courses in Myrtle Beach, or the 20 golf courses in my local area to play. They are used to that, not in golf, but they're used to that across every other thing they do online. And you can thank Google for aggregating information. You can thank Amazon for aggregating stuff you need to live and breathe. Right? So if a consumer gets everything they would need for information from Google in one place, and everything they would need from Amazon in one place, it stands to reason that they might want everything from a golf standpoint in one place. So the golf course is aware then that they are unique, but they're also part of a collective, that there are some golfers that will say, I want to play golf, and the sentence ends there. And they're just going to start their search, and they're going to migrate to Google or Facebook or wherever they go to find information. And there's some golf courses that say, I want to play golf at. And it's not one or the other. And some golfer may be, I want to play golf today, and some golfer, and the exact same golfer on another day may say, I want to play golf at a specific golf course. So the same consumer can be going down 2 different paths. Frustrating, I know, but that's golfers in general. Okay? And there theoretically could be third-party technologies to help expand the group. Invitation processes, social connection processes, and things that help expand the group and expand the tribe past the twosome or threesome you're seeing into a foursome, into an eightsome. And I say in a perfect world, the third party should help drive your course and your rate and your data. And I put a nice big asterisk there, which is we are not yet in that perfect world. Okay? So, those were my remarks and things. I'm going to turn it over to Stuart to move from there.
Thanks, Scott. So just to summarize, digital relationships trump, bad phrase, but trump phone relationships, database, then moving into spending more on marketing, and then within that, more of that is likely going to be digital versus traditional marketing. So in a nutshell, so Scott, you went 18 minutes, dude, so I'll be timekeeper here in the front and get everybody back on track.
No, it was like 4 minutes of your information.
No, yours was 18, I was 8. All right, so as Scott mentioned, Stuart's going to be up next. So now the things we've talked about collecting all this data, it's like, what the heck do we do with it? I was just talking to somebody who said there was on the main stage, there was about golf and all these people talking about all the data we're going to collect in the golf industry. And I said, and what did they propose to do it? Bruce, it was you. It's like they didn't have any suggestions to what to do with it. We should just go collect it. So Stuart's going to talk a little bit about what the heck to do with it.
Okay, I'm going to try to be within my 10 minutes. That's as tough for me as it was for Scott. I'll try to improve. It's too late for him. But anyway,
You're going to get your attendance?
I'm not done with you yet. Anyway, I've been around for a long time. I'm old. I helped with 4 reservations from before Scott even came to work there. I helped Jason a little bit with the introduction of Gallus, thanks to Bruce Gerlander, who's here, who gave Orange County National, gave Jason so much visibility for free that it really helped with Jason's success. And Jason's done a good job in growing his business, and he really is a pretty sharp technology guy. I've worked with Jim, who's put up with me for 17 years. In between all that, I've worked for, hundreds of golf courses, and banks and accountants, appraisers, and a whole bunch of stuff. Jim and I have dissected most data from most of the major golf platforms. We know their pluses and minuses. The good thing is most of the ones that are out there being used today have more pluses than minuses. We've analyzed millions of golfers and millions of transactions and had a reasonable time doing it. We also developed a weather application. You can pull this weather application cloud-based for any golf course in the United States and their closest weather station. You can pull that up from our cloud-based server in about 2 seconds, as of yesterday. We also have we're able to analyze rounds and revenue over a 3-year period comparatively, and that type of stock reporting that should be available in POS systems isn't, so, but the cloud may make that a little easier. You want to go to the next one? Okay, more analytics. We analyze transactions and revenue by hour, and then we go in and analyze the quality of the consumer information. We analyze their value on that sheet, and then we tell you how many email addresses you collected. And then we tie those email addresses to customers and allow you to, pick an SKU, and the 1,000 customers that bought weekday greens fees, we know whether they bought them last year and didn't this year. So anyway, we know our way around data. Next. And then you need data, and Scott talked about it, but you need data that's only going to be valuable if you have actions you can take against it. And what value that data has is changing a lot. Now, we took a 22,000 person email address database from one of our client courses, and we had an outside company, it's a new startup, run their email addresses through a process. First of all, 8,000 of them were no good anymore. because they've been in the database for, 5 years, 10 years. And so for those of you that have not cleaned your database, and now have trouble getting delivery for the rest of your email addresses that are good, it's because those addresses that are undeliverable are getting you affected into how the people deliver the mail for you. More importantly, you can go out onto the web with an algorithm, and for the 11,000 that they could match, they came back with age segmentation, gender, and state location for those customers from just their email address. So when you talk about the power of Google or the power of what's going on analytically behind your back, this is what they can tell about you when you give them your email address. I'm suggesting that maybe cleaning up your email addresses in the future is a good idea. And then maybe mining them, since you can do it. You can find out a lot more about your customer than just their email address. So, anyway, now you want to hit the next one, and then hit that. You want the link up? Yeah. There's a lot more that's available these days.
Everybody on the floor, this is the lottery. Don't move! Don't move! Get down and stay down! Move! Somebody's drunk!
Well, it was on.
Just play the audio. They'll get it.
Okay, we'll go back.
Everybody on the floor, this is the lottery. Don't move! Don't move! Get down and stay down! Move! Somebody, Molly! Open the door!
Mr. Johnson? Eric Johnson?
How does she know your name? I don't know.
Your mobile app pinged us when you walked in. Looks like you were on our website and thinking about buying a house.
You moving out there? Look at my space.
You may think you can't afford a new home, but we have some amazing new rates. I can text them to you.
It's fantastic.
And Mr. Davis, did you click on one of our emails about consolidating your student loans?
Maybe.
We can help you with that too.
Hey, what are you doing? This is robbery, remember? We gotta go! Come on!
Can I lock those rates in Honey app?
No, of course you can, sugar.
Sorry about that, we had that working earlier. But I think the audio gave it to you. Mobile is obviously a growing, a growing issue for all of us, and more so for my children. So the people that we want to attract to this business, we're going to need to adapt to how they want to have our product presented to them. And we have to remember that the consumer choice and consumer behavior is changing, and their expectations of customer service, they're evolving, and mediocrity is not tolerated. Now, I just paraphrased a guy that gave a speech on the future of the golf in Scotland, a guy named Stuart Darling, and anybody who wants a link to the presentation, it's 52 minutes well spent. He's talking about the problems in the birthplace of golf, which are just as bad or maybe worse than the ones we have here. But anyway, his point is that any answer that we have is going to be digital. But the data is available, but it is not in actionable format. The analytics needed are missing. And it's going to require data integration from multiple sources. I'm paraphrasing him now, and it might as well come out of my mouth too. But anyway, it's going to require data integration from multiple sources. Whether it's website registrations that go into POS systems, or POS systems that will then generate lists that will go out for email broadcast. The other thing that mobile will do is if you walk in the door, the mobile is carrying a MAC address that may carry your email address. The downside is all the data, the location on your phone is being sold by Verizon and AT&T and Google. And it Barry's getting that information of where you are, you might as well get the information too. So, anyway, the email address collection can be made a lot easier through a mobile app that was golf related than it is today. And then all this data needs to be translated easier for a golf course operator. You know, and it's a two-pronged problem. It's a challenge for the golf courses, and it's a challenge to the tech providers that I deal with all the time. It's like, and I don't want to offend any blondes in the audience, but it's like this blonde is praying to God every night to win the lottery. And God gets so tired of hearing this prayer every night, he finally decides to go down and speak to her in her dreams. And he says, you know what? I'd love to help you, but you gotta work with me here. You gotta buy a ticket. So the golf courses, as Scott said, you know, we don't spend money on marketing or enough money on marketing, and what we do spend may be misdirected. But you are going to need to invest in some of these solutions in order to have them work. You've got to understand that your customers are being tracked and they're being bought and sold on the internet, whether you like it or not. You go surfing for, you know, okay, Mike, I want to go play golf in Minnesota. Okay, I don't know whether Sand Ridge is the specific name, but I'm looking for golf in Minnesota. And somebody has paid Google to pop up on there to sell me golf in Minnesota when all I'm looking for is Sand Ridge because I can't remember the name. So you guys are being treated as fair game, and to talk about Jay Karen's article, it exists in golf. The bait and switch the hotels are pitching about to Google and looking at Google to solve, Google is helping to create. You know, all of you are listed on third-party directories, and somebody clicks on your course that you want to play, the third party is telling them they don't have any tee times available, but we do at the course down the street. And all of you guys every golf course in the United States is being used that way. So you got to pay attention to that. But more important for the tech providers, the new cloud-based stuff makes things possible that I've watched, you know, the transmission of data and getting the data to analyze that we do for our clients over the cloud right now. The potential is there so that Monday morning a golf course operator could walk in and see a weekly report compared to the last year's same week, adjusted for the day difference so that it's a Monday to Sunday comparison. They can have that waiting on their desk first thing Monday morning. On the first of the month, they can have a comparative month-to-month comparison for 3 years if they want it. But none of the tech people do that today, and they could be doing it tomorrow. So my challenge to the tech people is get with the program and help you guys get the information and actionable data that you need on a more timely, or in a more timely fashion. Thank you. I needed for 10 minutes.
He was close, right? All right, so Stuart's message is the data is out there. It's been harder to get to before when it was sitting in resident POS systems and encrypted databases along with the PCI, the credit card information. Now the question is going to be, can we do reports that give you easy access to it? You're not analysts like me. I spend all day in that data. I know what to do with it. So how do we get you something that's easier? And how do we make the connections behind the scenes? Matt's going to talk about that in cleanup. How do we make it connected behind the scenes so it's easy to you and hard for us? So now Jason's going to talk a little bit about social and the way that we connect golfers and the way they want to be connected today.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everybody, for stopping in today. Real quick, so Jason Wilson, I'm former founders and CEO of Dallas Golf. What we do is we build custom mobile apps for golf courses. We work with just over 700 golf courses to date in all shapes and sizes. And our solutions evolved over the years, and there's a lot that we do, but really at the core, what it's about is enhancing the experience between the golfer and golf course. So the two things I want to touch on today is one is, mobile's key role in customer engagement in today's day and age, and what customers and consumers, which are also golfers, what they're expecting today, on how they want to engage with the businesses they interact with. And also touch a little bit about new technology that's on the horizon that I think is important for us to keep our eyes out for. So first on mobile app engagement. One of the questions I get quite a bit is, what's the difference between a mobile website and a mobile app, or which one is more important? And really my answer is, both are important. They both serve very distinct purposes. I look at a mobile website or a responsive website that is the way to attract and make sure that your customers can find you quickly and easily. So when they're searching online or trying to find the course, if they hit your website, you want to make sure it's drop dead simple. Book a tee time, find out a little bit more about you, contact you, find out how to get there. And if they don't, if it's not responsive, not mobile friendly, you're going to lose them pretty quick. Now, that's to help start that initial transaction. Where really mobile apps have the biggest impact, in my opinion, is after that. After they've booked that first tee time or gotten to the golf course, and now the mobile app can really deepen the engagement with that client or that customer, both on the course and off the golf course, to create a more intimate experience between your course and the golfer. So I wanted to bring a real example of this, just to kind of lay out a little bit of what I'm talking about here. So one of the tools in our app that our clients can use is to create custom loyalty programs. And I want to show an example. One of our clients, I thought, got pretty creative with one. They can do a punch card or a points program, and they branded their program in the app called Tap the App. And the idea was, hey, every time you come out to the course, we're going to, let us tap your app, and we're going to reward you. And it was very simple. It was very straightforward. Nothing, revolutionary here. Is, every time they come out, they earn a punch for a round of golf, and once their punch card is full, they win a free round. So what did they see with this? So in last year, they saw 2,800 participants in their loyalty program, this Tap the App program that was inside their app. They saw just over 12,500 18-hole rounds and just over 1,600 9-hole rounds tracked through this loyalty program in the app. And that attributed or related to about $640,000 in green fee revenue in 2017. So by no means am I saying they added $640,000 in revenue last year, but the feedback from the golf course was this was instrumental in helping them add those incremental rounds, add those incremental revenue for them that year. They had never done a loyalty program before, and they got tremendous feedback from their clients or their customers that this program was so easy to use. It really showed the customer appreciation that they were trying to get across to their customers to come back out and play their course more often. And so one of the things that some of the key points in this is that one of the reasons we built this in the app, there's a lot of technologies out there today, whether it's CRM or point of sale. You guys can create a loyalty program, but in most cases, it lives on a computer in the pro shop. And the customer really doesn't have great visibility into that program. And so we think that that's very important. For them to find out where they are in a lot of these programs is they've got to call the shop or walk in, hey, how many points do I have? Or, did I earn any points today? By having it live on the app, they have instant visibility. Every time they get a reward, they see that happen instantly. I'm sure many of you have some loyalty program with some business that lives on your app, and you get that right away, you get that notification. And it also helps drive their purchasing behavior. It's when they're thinking about, okay, when am I going to play golf? And they have your app installed on their phone, they can pull it out and I'm only 1 or 2 punches away from my free round. I'm going to go over there and, hey, Jim, buddies, let's go play this golf course. So it helps drive that purchasing behavior. It also helps create awareness about the program's benefit to others in a really simple and easy way. And Scott talked about the person coming in to check in for golf, and the first guy checks in, he gets his app tapped, and the other 3 guys are saying, hey, well, what is that? How do I get that reward too? It's a really simple process. Hey, just download our app and we'll do it as well. It's not, hey, fill out this form or go to this website and sign up. It's simple, it's easy, it's right there. And it's also collecting the data that we talked about is so important as well. It's grabbing that unique customer's information, and it's getting that app installed on those customers' phones, which leads to further engagement with them. Because, you know, this client could have easily printed out 3,000 business cards and handed those out as their loyalty program. But you can't send a push notification to a little business card. You can't, hit them with a geofence notification. You can't prompt them to order some food and beverage during the round. But you can do that, when that app and that program lives in their pocket. And so this helped them grow a powerful new communication channel that now they can instantly communicate with their customers through that app. And I looked it up, and they had a geofence notification is a notification sent based on their location on certain areas, maybe on the golf course, maybe their competitor courses, and they had almost 76,000 geofence notifications sent in 2017. And a big part of that is that they have to have the app on the phone, and the loyalty program created one reason to get that app on there, so now they can really continue to engage with them on that. So that's what I'm talking about with mobile engagement. That's one example, but it can play a key role in this. What customers are really expecting today. So the next thing I want to talk about is looking into the future a little bit, and I don't think it's very far in the future, but what are some other trends in technology that we should keep our eyes out for? And one I think that is growing massively in other industries is the use of artificial intelligence. You see companies like obviously Google, Uber, Ford, Amazon. I mean, they are investing tens of billions of dollars into AI. Now, what is AI? AI is an umbrella term that covers a lot of different methodologies, whether it's cognitive computing, natural language processing, a lot of other things. But really, at its core, AI is a machine with the ability to copy intelligent behavior. And I wanted to kind of break down the steps in a simple way of how AI works and why it's so powerful, and why these companies are investing in it so much. And I'll tie it back to golf and mobile here, but really this is kind of the process of deep learning or machine learning here is you've got this really smart engine. You got to feed it some data. It wants to ingest this data. It's going to analyze this data. And there's a lot of softwares out there today that do this right now. Your point of sale, CRM, marketing tools. They can give you fantastic reports on open rates or transactions and everything in analytics. But that's where I see most course operators, they kind of just get stuck and stop. What do I do with all this information? And that's where AI becomes so powerful, is it not only analyzes this data that we talked about earlier, but it also uses that data to recognize patterns and trends and make predictions on the future. And not only those predictions, but create actions as a result. And that action can be specific communications because of what it's learned to specific golfers, in this case, that are targeted, that are personalized, that because they understand the behavior of these different segments and what they might respond to. It also could be, inventory in the pro shop, and understanding, hey, what's the best way to price it, or what should we be stocking? It could be related to staff, and optimizing, the staff on hand at the right times to, really make sure you're operating efficiently there. But it's let's take these actions and then put them out there, and then let's evaluate them. And then again, it's going to take that data back, see what the results are, analyze them, improve their predictions and trends, improve the communications that they want to send out, or the actions they want to take, and then it's going to do it again and again and again. It's like running thousands of mini experiments all the time and continuing to get smarter and smarter and smarter. And that's what makes AI so powerful, is it's taking that burden off of any business, in this case a GM at a golf course, to help them be smarter without having to spend all the time it would take them or the marketing team they'd have to hire to do it. And where this relates back to mobile and Scott's earlier point on data is the engine is only as smart as the data you feed it. So if you're only collecting 1 out of 4, unique user data, then it's not going to get as smart as it can, or if it's not tracking the transactions throughout that customer experience, it's not going to be able to, really give you better predictions on trends and patterns. And one of the things that makes mobile so important with this is that if you can track those trends through mobile. When somebody downloads, let's say, an app, and it's tied to that unique user, and if you can tie everything in there with all the transactions from the tea time booking, to them checking in, to the food and beverage they're ordering, to the merchandise they're purchasing, you're not relying on that staff to make sure that they are, making sure when they buy that shirt or that bucket of balls or whatever it may be, that they're tying it. Hey, let me put in the member number for that. It's automatically doing it and tying back to the user. So it's really making that data so much, providing better data to make the AI smarter. And then it also becomes the communication channel to be able to now communicate back out to those golfers with the right message at the right time with that smart, intelligence there. So anyway, I'll wrap it up there, but just a couple of things I wanted to share today. Thank you guys very much for joining.
Thank you, sir. So the message is, the millennials live on their phones. If we're still some other place, we are not going to be relevant to the millennials, and that's websites and web-enabled websites and also social media. And as Jason mentioned, the thing is, once you're on that phone, people want to be on that home screen. I don't know whether we can aspire as golf courses to be on the home screen of a millennial's phone, but to be on that phone and have that app, it tells us where that person is, it tells us behavior, it gives us a lot of information that we wouldn't otherwise have. So, great advice. If you're on my mobile, you could still be on my home screen. It probably isn't going to do you much good, but the millennials live there. I've got 2 of them at home. So now Matt's going to clean up here for us, and he's going to talk a little bit. Before, we tried to build these huge integrated systems all ourselves. And what he's going to talk a little bit about is it's much more modular today, and how do we get all these technologies to work with us.
Thanks, Jim. So yeah, for those that don't know me, my name is Matt Welliver. I'm Vice President of Corporate Development for Corona Golf. I've been around in the space. I started in 2000, and through acquisitions or part of acquisitions, I think I've been associated now with almost 10 different tee sheets out there. It's been a lot. So I've seen a lot, and can't necessarily tell you I can demo them all for you, but I have learned a lot over the years on it. And so with that though, there's been a lot of confusion, there's been a lot of change, and a lot of innovation, and some really cool stuff. Some of my previous lives I've worked on, I got to actually look under the hood and see how other, I'm going to say some of the biggest management companies work and how they're doing things. And today there's really no reason why just a single course operator can't do this stuff themselves. So I'm going to talk about now, these are probably some basic stuff, but from a now standpoint, what's a cloud solution and the benefits to that if you don't already have one. And then open platforms. What does that mean? Like, why is an open platform important to you? And then in the future, what that future looks like in our world, I'm going to talk about automation, and then similar to what Jason talked about is on intelligent data or artificial intelligence. So first and foremost, let's see a show of hands. Who here is not on a cloud-based solution? All right, we got a couple. So firstly, there's web-based solutions and there's cloud-based solutions. So web-based are applications that were written in the web browser. They do exist still out there today. But data is housed either in-house at the golf course or it's housed at the vendor. A cloud-based solution is where your data literally lives up in the cloud and it's being stored by very powerful companies out there that are like Microsoft or Amazon, and they're hosting your data for you. You'll never see that server again. And for the most part, you'll be very grateful that you'll never see that server again. I can't tell you how many times we would get support calls. Our system is down, I have all these errors on my screen, and it's because the pro turned off the server because they use it for their computer as well. So that stuff is gone. You'll never have to worry about that. You'll never have to be an IT master anymore for the most part. Yeah, you're going to deal with internet outages and stuff like that. But the benefit of the cloud is all this infrastructure is taken off from you, the operator. Don't even worry about that. Very limited help you will need, but it's very, it's not significant anymore. But really what it does too for us software vendors in developing in the cloud, it allows us to do a bunch of things. We're able to develop quicker, we're able to develop more modern, we're able to deploy so efficiently, like everyone is on the same version of software. Training today has changed significantly than what training was done years ago, where I used to be part of deals where we would be on site for 10 days, 7 days, 5 days. A basic install you know, we were on site for 3 to 4 days, right? Today, our deployments are measured in hours almost. You know, it's not like you can get all up and going in one day, but we have those tools now and the capabilities to import data, you know, more or less set up the system for you, and then easily train you on the system. You know, I had to teach people what a mouse was. That's no longer today. So, yeah, that was a good memories. But the other side of it that it is about is, you know, integrations. On modern platforms, it's a lot easier to work with other companies now. Because these companies, we all have the same sort of mindset that we need to allow integrations. We need to be able to, you know, have what's called an API, you know, that would allow someone to tap into that data to do that. So everybody here talks about great things. You know, you gotta collect email addresses or customer names or text messages, you know, all that. But now that the system has all that data, you need to be able to get it out. And sometimes the steward nailed it right on the head. We don't have the best reporting, right? We got a lot of good reports, you know, kind of all got the same reports. But, you know, we can't, we're not experts in all of that field. So that kind of brings me into the next phase of what I want to talk about is really now today with these open platforms and integrations is leveraging best of breed, okay? And that's working with Gallus, that's working with Golfbook, that's working with, you know, Pellucid. We have DRS here in the room, we have Cognistics in the room, which they're part of a company working with on the artificial intelligence side. You know, Chrono Golf, we use Lightspeed as our point of sale provider. We're not wanting to get into the minutia of writing a point of sale. Data Candy is a system now that's out there that we can tap into, that they do loyalty programs for every major chain that you could possibly think of out there, right? And what they're able to bring down into golf is absolutely, will blow your mind. But it comes with the first sense of, we need to have a product, or a system needs to have the ability to be open, okay? That doesn't mean open in the sense that we're going to develop everything they tell us to. Certainly there's things that people want from an integration standpoint that we can't do or have available, you know, readily available. But more or less, you should have, you know, work with a partner that doesn't control who you work with from a data standpoint, and in my opinion, from a distribution standpoint. It should be an open system. So there's probably a lot that I can talk on that. That's one reason why I wanted to be last. I could not sit up here without working with a company that has an open system, right? And this is where, and I bet you, and I've been going to these shows just, I think 17 years now, and I've seen sort of the evolution of these companies that are attending, you know, these shows. And you're going to see a significant amount of new vendors that are coming in that are going to offer services, right, that are going to help you with your data, right? That data could be pricing. We're seeing that now. There's been a good evolution of that lately. We've seen people try with data, with customer information. You know, this stuff has tried to happen. It's been difficult because of lack of technology. But now with the way technology is, it's easier to do it, more efficient. So I just know, and just, you know, companies that I know that I've worked with in one of my previous lives, there's a lot out there for you to choose, right? And so you need to make sure you have that choice of who you work with. We're not going to be the best. We don't want to be the best. We should be the best in everything. So what really excites me is what's the future looking like, right? And I remember this, and I was hearing that Harry Hippobaum had come in here before, one of the founders there, or founder four, but I remember him talking about kiosks long, long ago. Well, really, the reality of this stuff now is available today. I put it in the future, but the automation standpoint of that golf. Jim, I'm going to steal one of your quotes. I think it was, the new service is self-service for millennials. Right? They want to be able to book quickly. They might want to just play a few holes, but they just want to pay. They want to get reminded. They want to be able to check in, and they don't want to go in the golf shop, but they just want to go to the tee. You know, that was the discussions I remember a couple of years ago. And the thought process was, well, we want them to come into the shop so we can sell them things, and we want to upsell them and do this stuff. Well, okay, this world's changed. We have to change. You have to embrace that and allow that. that people just want to be able to easily do these things on themselves, right? For the golf, people can buy memberships online. They can buy their 10-game pass online. They don't even have to come in and do that anymore. It just happens now. They just sign up and go. You're going to see a lot more of that. And then the good old restaurants, that's what the one on the right is. And then what's sad about that is a lot of this is getting a lot of innovation because of the drive of, minimum wage going up, right? You guys just are fighting the fight on so many fronts, and then you just get thrown in with a $15 minimum wage. What do? You can't cut anymore. You just spent the last 15, 20, 30 years doing all of that. Reinvesting in, turf maintenance or water conservation efforts, and then you get thrown on with the $15 an hour, right? I get it, but, so what do you do, right? Where do you cut, where do you change, where do you innovate? That's where I see it as a cool opportunity for you as an operator to re-innovate your business, right? Let's offer some of these cool things, right? Allow some of these self-service, self-ordering automation. That's fun for me. I like that stuff. And then lastly, and Jason talked about it, is data intelligence. And I can tell you, I'm not that smart in this category, but there's a lot of people that are very smart. If you get a chance to listen to one of my latest podcasts there, it's with Sanjay with Cognistics. Huge background in this stuff, right? On applying some pretty incredible concepts to data in other industries, and now they're bringing that to golf, right? And just think about it, Jason, you said it too, predicting who is best that's going to be able to play at this tee time, right? And it can be based upon a whole bunch of parameters, right? I can name a few, I'm sure the formula is way advanced more than that. But who's the most likely that will, even down on your inventory side, who's most likely that will play if you do give them a discount, right? You don't have to give a discount to people that don't have booked and full rent. So that data, I think, is going to be that transition of taking data and analyzing it, through some pretty cool machines, if you want to call it that. But again, it starts with the point of sale vendor, making sure that you are efficiently collecting that data, easily managing that data, but then able to work with other companies out there to do stuff with that data, right? And so, that's what I got on that.
All right, thank you very much. At this point, as I foreshadowed, we're going to do some Q&A, so we're going to open it up. What I'd like to do is for the Q&A, I'm going to take the mic back up to them. If you could repeat the question, that way we'll pick it up on the live feed, because they probably won't be able to pick it up off the ambient noise in the room. So just raise your hand, we'll have a question, we'll get somebody up on the podium to answer it, and we'll just roll from one question to another. Who wants to start us off? Yes?
We have a question from the Facebook Live.
Beautiful.
So Francis is wondering if we could go over the different software and companies we looked at on the previous slides, and just maybe go over them quickly and give an example of their integrations.
Okay. Yeah, so for this is more specific to Chroma Golf, but we use we don't want to be accountants. We try to do that. Some systems try to do that accountants, so that's QuickBooks that's listed up there. Then we have Pellucid, and working with Pellucid in developing their reports that, heavy, great information based upon weather and knowing who your customer is. Below that is Lightspeed, one of the largest point of sale providers out there. And there's MailChimp, very large, one of the biggest email marketing tools that are out there. Obviously, Golf, that's up here, Cognistics, who I mentioned earlier, that's on the AI. Golf Book, gentleman here to my left. Data Candy, that's a company that offers very robust loyalty programs. And then we have DRS, which is Dynamic Revenue Services, and they provide field management consulting and service levels down at the course level. So Chroma Golf works with all of these. We could probably fill up the whole screen with a whole bunch of other logos as well. We're an open system. We don't say no.
And that brings up a good point. Matt had talked about cloud-based systems. There are multiple cloud-based systems. We're going to see more of them out there. So it's not, none of us sitting here are saying that we are the way, the truth, and the light. We are one of the providers. We believe that we're thought leaders in our industries. That's why we do things like these panels. But there, it's a match point. I mean, we could fill up that entire screen with logos of things that will be plug-compatible technology in the future. They're going to be a heck of a lot easier for you to work with, and it's going to force us to work a little bit differently and to work together. And as Matt said, how do we get to speed of deployment? How do we get you into something faster? Before it was like it took days to install, you had to plan it 3 months out. Things are moving like that now. I don't know about you, but my head just swims sometimes. All right, question. There we go. Let's we'll start at the back and we'll work our way up.
How does customer service and retaining those customers fit into all this? Because it almost, what I'm hearing is the least amount of time you spend with people, the better chance you have of them coming out to you. The more easier you make it for them to check in without seeing you, book a tea time without talking to you, the more chance they have to come out to you. How does customer service and creating retention and customer fit into all this, what you're saying today?
Yeah, I would say it's probably a shift that's happening outside of the golf course that's pushing itself into the golf environment, right? So I think the advent of these bad boys is probably as the start of it with Steve Jobs, right? So you have a computer in your hand that, I mean, think of all the devices that this has replaced, from alarm clock to Atlas to, I mean, anything, right? So I'm learning to serve myself by just using this screen. And the traditional golf professional PGA approach was, I like to know who this person is. I like to talk to him, have a dialogue. We're glad you're here. I think the millennial, I like the new service, the self-service, is because we are adapting outside of the golf course. So I don't need somebody to tell me if a Friday at 1 o'clock is available or not available. Got it. Okay? I don't need you to take my information and book me a tea time. Got it. I don't need you to tell me how to get to the golf course. Still got it, right? So, and eventually pay, right? So all of those things are going to happen, and then as we get smarter, these systems will know, okay, you like to play on Friday at 1, you like to drink a gin and tonic and a sea breeze and a 6-pack of beer. We can start to do kind of an Amazon pre-fulfillment where you're checking out at Amazon and you buy one thing, and then it tells you the 4 other things that you're probably going to buy because we know who you are, right? So there's that. So those sort of things making their way into golf. So now where are the opportunities for service? So if the customer wants to take care of all that prior, so any point of contact that you have there, making sure that the cart's ready, that it's got the beer on it, or what, making sure that the starter and the first tee and the beverage cart, there are still going to be points of service, probably just less of them, would be my guess. So, and it'll be a differentiator, but it's no different than a gas station that used to be this big, huge thing, and now it's just like literally just pay at the pump and off you go. So it's probably just society making its way over to golf, nothing different. And then for customer retention, if you have less points of customer contact, you can't screw any of those up then. Right? So if it used to be 10 and you used to give really good service on 8 out of 10 and that used to get you by, if you have 4, you can't go 2 for 4. Because now you're batting 50% and the experience might be bad. So
I told these guys when we started, I said, this is going to be really hard for me as a moderator because I want to be in the middle of a conversation. And I've resisted the temptation. I'm going to make one comment here, and then that's going to be my parting shot. I'll turn it over to them. In my mind, that app is your customer experience for the millennial generation, and that's good and bad. The good part is that that's where they want to be. So if you deliver a great app experience, you win. If you deliver a crappy app experience, you lose. So that's kind of the bad thing, is it's not about the people anymore, it's that app. The good thing is, before we were having to do customer service training for an entire group of people that were turning over all the time. So the good thing is, I get consistency from that app. I know what the customer experience is going to be in that app because I built it in there and I'm getting feedback on it. So I kind of look at it as a two-edged sword. It's going to be good and bad for us, and for those millennials, that is going to be your customer service. All right, so now as I mentioned, I'm sorry, I apologize, I gotta go, so I'm gonna turn it over to the panel and they're gonna continue to take questions and just ask them anything that you want. We're on until 5, and at 5 o'clock then I think there's something else going on in here, we'll take the conversations outside, but I'll turn it over to the panel. There was, let me see, we're going there, and then there was a question over here.
Yeah, this one's for Matt. why does Chronogolf believe in an open API and open system so much? And then also, why is a closed system bad for me as a golf course operator?
Well, I'd say that Chrono took an open API approach because that's how they, you know, for them to come into the market, they used products that had an open API concept. So we follow that methodology because of that. We were able to leverage those products and services to build upon what we see as a great club solution, right? And so those products all have open APIs, and so we just have an open API for our teaching. It's not like we have an open API for all of these products, they all have their own, right? Sorry, what was your second part of your question?
As an operator, what's the pitfalls of a closed-based system?
Well, the pitfalls is you're limited on choice, right? You're limited on choice, and you're limited on the technology provider of what they're providing you in their data, right? And as you see, like, there's a lot of smart people in this room, outside of this room, at this show, and that you as an operator, why not be able to leverage those people, right? There are a lot of smart people out there than us people that are doing software better, right? So let us be the best at doing that, and then work with those other people, you know, to provide you with those, you know, more further insights, right?
Well, the closed is not bad, but as Matt said, you're limited to the reports that your vendor is gonna make available to you. Without, you know, having worked on all these platforms, closed, open, and everything else, it's just a lot easier for us to do the work that we do on an open system than it is to have to go and get an API into a database or have the golf course call the POS vendor and tell them to put their data in a Dropbox and give it to me. And, you know, it just, we've seen the metamorphosis of this, and open API, cloud-based, is going to make it a lot easier for you to pick and choose things that suit your specific course. It's just going to make it a lot easier.
Yep, yeah.
Well, looking into your crystal ball that you have up there for the future, do you see these analytical tools that you're developing able to create more of a dynamic pricing model for each golf course, whereby they can then use that data through that app to, you know, the customer controls the demand, but the golf course still sort of controls the price of that product? And is there a way to integrate the two, so if the customer says, yeah, I'm playing at 1 o'clock, they're getting the 1 o'clock price, and somebody at 5 o'clock getting the dynamically created 5 o'clock price, so that we maximize our revenue for the day?
Yeah, I personally think that where we'll see some pretty cool stuff is on the, I guess, artificial intelligence side, is going to be on pricing, right? Right now, there's variable-based, you know, and capacity-based dynamic pricing, which can do some of what you're talking about. But I see that there's going to be, you know, maybe a very specific, you know, message to somebody at a very specific rate that we know that they will pay for. That's not being offered to everybody else, right? That's some pretty cool stuff. That's not being done, I don't think. You know, or that as that tee time now has a specific rate for that person that's being communicated to, right? Quite likely, right? You bring up a good point.
Question kind of relates to the video that we didn't see, but like on your apps, if you know, if a guy has your app, you know, it's Pull My Golf Course, is it going to be a point where when they step onto the property, I'm going to get a notification that they were there, and you know, then you know, it's integrated right in to the tee sheet that you know, if they're a member, they're taken care of. If it's a public facility, and you know, there's a notice that they're here, and so you can look for them, and their information's already there.
Yes, I think definitely, you know, we have the ability with the technology to, one, when they step onto maybe a certain area, a certain property, one, communicate to them. There can be that intermediary, that step in between where, you know, we can notify you. We're doing this actually with an MCO that we work with, where we can actually communicate back to them in their system to let them know, hey, this person has arrived at the golf course. And instead of maybe communicating a specific, or I'm sorry, a generic notification, hey, welcome to the club or whatnot, they can check in the system, who is this person, what type of member or player are they, do they have a tee time today, some other information, so that way, you know, they can maybe send a specific message saying, hey, welcome Scott to the club, we see you've got a 9 o'clock tee time, and then talking about some of the other things where, hey, would you like to check in now and avoid the line of the pro shop. The next step is yes, it's being able to also notify the club. I don't see it there today.
Maybe the outside staff has something, so they might miss them pulling in, so they know to look for them, they might even.
Well, yeah, if they
If
enter
it's
the
the
property.
4-pack, 6-pack guy, Bud Light, that every time he comes.
They can customize the service to them based on, you know, their arrival and everything there. And I think, to go back to the earlier question on how does all this relate to customer service, I think it comes back to that. And I think when I've talked about this concept with some operators, and Matt mentioned it earlier, is that, you know, sometimes there's traditional thinking of, well, no, I want them to come to the pro shop, but we want to create a great customer service experience and shake their hand and make sure they see the product in the pro shop. And, you know, we can upsell them on all this and we can collect their data. And I think it's a matter of shifting the perception that actually, I think for millennials and many others, that actually a better customer service experience to them is to not talk to anybody. They don't want to talk to you. And it's not anything against you, it's nothing personal, but they will actually leave that business or leave the golf course with a much better review and experience with you and feel like, gosh, that was awesome, because I didn't have to talk to anybody today. And I think that's just something that, and Scott mentioned, is the shift of how we have to start to think about this, and that's hard to understand, but, you know, that is where things are going, is that they want to be able to do everything here and not have to have that interaction. And it's not going to be everybody, and I think that where that also relates back to the customer service piece is, there are still going to be those folks that want to come in and shake hands and talk to people and have that face-to-face interaction. But if you're giving the customer the choice, and half of them are saying, yeah, great, I can do everything here and not have to waste your time and staff's time, that staff can spend more time with those that want to come and talk to you. So now you're providing a better experience on both ends, those that want to self-service and those that want a little bit more service.
Okay, I'm gonna add one thing here. First of all, you know, we can concentrate on the millennials all we want, but we have to remember that 62% of the golf is played by people over 55. So when you wanna put in Dan's question back there, if you have a mobile app, and we all, I mean, even old people like me have mobile phones in our pocket. If we have an app that's a golfer app, it's some code that might be in the mobile apps that Gallus writes, or code that might be in what Go to Golf writes, or anybody that writes a mobile code identifies it as a golfer. And if they're pinged when they walk into the bank, and all of a sudden you're notified of the name of that person, maybe even the email address, but just the name. Now that name can be with an open architecture. That name can now be checked against the database. Okay, are they already in the database of the POS or not? Okay, if it is, your greeting to that person is totally different than if it isn't. If it is in there, it's nice to see you again, Mr. Ladd. If it isn't, well, I see you haven't, our records say you haven't been here before. Can I help you find anything or help you get around better? Or, you know, how do I introduce a new golfer? So just with that mobile app, paying and being interactive with the database changes the level of customer service that we're going to be able to deliver.
And the last thing I said, so for Stuart's point, which is, I wouldn't equate somebody that is obsessed with their cell phone with being a millennial. There are plenty of Gen Ys and Gen Xers kind of moving up the chain, all the way up to my mom, right, who is now obsessed with their phone. So the millennials get shoehorned with that, but that sort of, into themselves, customer service themselves, that's not exclusively, 22 to 35-year-olds. That spectrum could go all the way up probably to the 50s, maybe even the 60s as an average.
Percentage of addicts is lower though.
The percentage of addicts is lower, but there still are a significant percentage of addicts. So, there's one right there.
Yeah, I guess I work for a resort management company, and a lot of the choices that we make for our software is based on security, security of data, and I think all this new technology with data is great for the business. However, I think sometimes we get a lot of pushback from the older generation in particular about what are you using this data for? Is it safe? And I guess my question is, how would you address concerns of our owners and shareholders that our guests and customers' data is safe in these new programs and this new data that we're collecting?
That's a good question. With these, hosting companies that are out there, I mean, one, they're, I'll say, I don't know them all by name and all the differences between them all, but one, I'm pretty sure that, there's very large companies that are also on there. So if there's any type of breaches and all that, they have a considerable amount of security in place to protect them. The due diligence process on that stuff is just through the roof when it comes to some of these organizations that are hosting with them. They're doing this. So we hear about it. Is it going to happen? Yeah, it's going to happen. Are they going to target you, a golf course, versus maybe a bank? Yeah, I think they're going to go after the bank rather than a golf course's data. Their information has already been breached through another means, but that's what they do, that's their business. And they, before your data was sitting, at the golf course level, and at some point you could just open that up in Excel. I remember looking at credit card numbers, a lot of them, right, back in the day. So, so I feel very more comfortable today. It's before, in a previous life I would sell that those were some of the concerns that you would need to think about, right? Because we don't know what that looks like, what that future looks like. But we do know what it looks like today with how far they've evolved with their technology and their levels of security.
All right, I got a signal. They got something else coming up here, so we got to kind of wrap this up and take it out.